Welcome to Ancient Spiritual Knowledge. I'm your host, Zoe Parker. And in today's episode, we open a doorway into the mysteries of shamanic journeys, where ancient plant medicines were seen not as drugs or chemicals, but as sacred allies guiding seekers into hidden dimensions of spirit and consciousness. For countless generations, healers and visionaries stepped into altered states through plants regarded as living teachers, unveiling visions, wisdom, and connections beyond the ordinary world. Together, we will travel through these timeless paths of healing, remembering what was once known and honoring the whispers of the earth. Across the expanse of human history, people have long sought connection with realms that lie beyond the limits of the senses. This yearning is as old as firelight itself, as ancient as the first song sung beneath the stars. For the shaman, that search for meaning was never about idle curiosity, but about survival, healing, and maintaining harmony with the forces of nature. Illness, drought, misfortune, and death were not only physical events, but signs of imbalance between the seen and unseen worlds. To restore balance, the shaman would journey into the hidden dimensions of reality, guided by rhythms of drums, chants, and most often, the spirit of the plants themselves. These plants were never consumed casually. They were revered as living beings, as elders and teachers whose presence demanded respect, preparation, and deep intention. The desire to enter these states reveals something universal in human nature. Across continents and centuries, cultures separated by oceans developed nearly identical practices. In the rainforests of the Amazon, the bitter brew known as ayahuasca was prepared by combining leaves and vines whose chemical harmony unlocked visions of astonishing clarity. In the mountains of Mexico, sacred mushrooms called teonanacatl, or the flesh of the gods, were used to summon visions of divine beings. In the deserts of North America, the peyote cactus carried seekers into communion with ancestors and spirit guides. Even in ancient Europe, scholars now believe rituals at places like Eleusis involved a sacred drink that induced transcendent experiences, described as life-changing initiations. At the heart of all these traditions lies the recognition that ordinary perception does not reveal the full truth of existence. The shamans stepped beyond the veil not to escape reality, but to see it more fully. The plants acted as keys, unlocking doors in the human mind and spirit that otherwise remained closed. What was witnessed in these journeys was carried back to the community as wisdom for healing, guidance for decisions, or messages from the spirit world. In this way, shamanic journeys were not individual pursuits of power or enlightenment. They were acts of service, deeply woven into the fabric of collective life. The longing that drove these practices is the same longing that stirs within us today. It is the hunger to feel connected to something greater, to pierce through the noise of daily existence and touch the mystery that breathes beneath all things. Whether one calls it the divine, the cosmos, or simply the spirit of life, the shaman's journey reflects humanity's timeless attempt to reach for what cannot be grasped by hands, but only felt through the heart and soul. The origins of these sacred practices reach deep into humanity's earliest stories, when knowledge was carried not in books, but in memory, ritual, and symbol. In the Amazon basin, entire lineages of shamans have described how the spirit of the plants themselves revealed the recipes for their powerful medicines. It is a mystery still unanswered by science. The ayahuasca brew requires the precise combination of two very different plants, one containing the visionary compound and another holding the rare key that allows the human body to receive it. Out of tens of thousands of species, how could this discovery have been made without guidance from something beyond human trial and error? For those who guard the tradition, the answer is clear. The plants spoke, and the healers listened. In Mexico, the Mazatec people preserved their connection with sacred mushrooms even through centuries of persecution. Passed through whispers and carried into secret caves, the rituals remained alive as acts of resistance against erasure. Their ceremonies honored the mushrooms as divine messengers, gifts that revealed the words of the gods and the wisdom of the ancestors. The chants, songs, and prayers woven into these ceremonies were not performances, but vehicles through which the unseen could speak into the world of the living. Farther north, The Native American church held peyote in the highest reverence. The cactus was not simply eaten, but entered into relationship with, approached through prayer and fasting. Its visions often carried lessons of endurance, humility, and connection to the Great Spirit. Among many tribes, peyote came to symbolize not only a bridge to the divine, but also resilience against the forces of colonization, a way to preserve spiritual sovereignty when other traditions were outlawed. In ancient Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries initiated seekers into the secret of death and rebirth. Although the precise details remain hidden, accounts from initiates describe a sacred drink that revealed visions so profound that fear of death was said to vanish. These rites endured for nearly 2,000 years, influencing philosophers and shaping spiritual thought long after their disappearance. Even today, their echoes remain in questions of whether the ancient Greeks had found a portal into altered consciousness that revealed truths beyond rational understanding. All of these practices share a single thread. They were not isolated inventions, nor accidents of culture. They were sacred teachings, carried carefully from generation to generation, rooted in the conviction that plants are not mere objects, but conscious allies. Each ritual, each prayer, each preparation reflected a recognition that the earth itself holds wisdom, and that through respectful communion, humanity can glimpse realities beyond the veil of the ordinary. When seekers describe their experiences within these plant-induced states, the language often bends beneath the weight of what they have seen. Words fall short, yet patterns emerge across cultures and centuries. Shamans speak of traveling beyond the body, carried on waves of sound and vision into landscapes more real than waking life. They describe encounters with luminous beings, animals that speak in human voices, or ancestors who reveal guidance with striking clarity. These visions are not seen as illusions, but as revelations of hidden layers of truth, glimpses into a reality that coexists with the physical world. Many accounts share the sensation of profound interconnectedness. The self dissolves into the forest, the river, the stars. The boundary between human and nature, between inner and outer, disappears. This state of unity is often described as healing in itself, for it restores the awareness that life is not fragmented, but woven together in a vast, living web. Some journeys bring catharsis, where buried memories or unresolved emotions rise to the surface, demanding to be released. Others awaken an inner stillness, a peace so deep that it transforms the way life is approached long after the ceremony has ended. Energy is another language through which these experiences are understood. Shamans describe seeing illness as a tangle of dark threads within the body, or as a foreign object lodged in the spirit. During the journey, they may remove these intrusions, replacing them with light, sound, or the essence of healing plants. Others speak of retrieving lost parts of the soul, fragments broken away through trauma, which return when called back through sacred songs and prayers. The experience may feel like a dream, yet its effects ripple outward, often bringing physical healing, emotional release, or renewed purpose in life. Western explorers of consciousness have echoed similar testimonies. Writers, mystics, and seekers describe visions of vast geometries, radiant fields of light, or cosmic journeys that defy imagination. Many report that the knowledge received is not intellectual, but embodied, a felt certainty that existence is far greater than what the eyes can see. These accounts align with the shamanic view that truth is not confined to material evidence, but is carried in the energy of direct experience. What unites these stories is the sense that something deeply real has been touched. Whether seen as visions from the spirit world, reflections of the subconscious, or encounters with other dimensions, the result is often the same. Lives are changed, illnesses are healed, grief is softened, and meaning is restored. For those who journey, the plants do not simply open the mind. They open the heart to the mysteries of existence itself. Across the vast diversity of human cultures, echoes of the shamanic journey can be found. The details may vary, yet the essence remains strikingly similar, as though humanity has always been reaching for the same hidden current beneath reality. In Siberia, shamans have long spoken of traveling along the world tree, its roots reaching into the underworld and its branches stretching into the heavens. With the aid of sacred fungi, drumming, and chant, they described ascending this cosmic axis to speak with spirits or descending to retrieve lost souls. Thousands of miles away in the Amazon, shamans tell of the Vine of Souls, a plant that opens a ladder of light leading into the spirit realms. In Norse traditions, seers and mystics entered trance states through rhythmic chanting and plant mixtures, describing visions of Yggdrasil, the great tree that connected all realms of existence. Among the Celts, sacred groves were honored as living portals, and rituals involving mead and other herbal infusions invited participants to commune with deities and otherworldly beings. In Africa, healers relied on plant allies such as iboga to travel inward, entering dreamlike states that revealed ancestral wisdom and offered guidance for community life. Even within ancient Judeo-Christian texts, there are whispers of plant-based vision quests. Some scholars suggest that the burning bush witnessed by Moses, or the anointing oils described in early scripture, may have carried properties that altered consciousness, opening channels for divine revelation. In India, the ancient Vedas speak of soma, a mysterious sacred drink consumed in ritual to open the gates of immortality and connect with the gods. Though its exact ingredients have been lost to time, the reverence with which it was held reveals its role as a bridge between human and divine. Despite oceans and centuries separating these traditions, a common thread binds them together: the recognition that altered states of consciousness can reveal universal truths. The imagery of ascending ladders, trees, or pathways into the heavens recurs with uncanny consistency. The presence of guides, whether animal spirits, ancestors, or deities, appears again and again. Most of all, the conviction that these journeys hold meaning not only for the individual, but for the community, is shared across traditions. These archetypes suggest that humanity, no matter where it has flourished, has always carried an instinctive knowledge of unseen worlds. The forms differ, but the essence is the same: a sacred attempt to pierce the veil, guided by plants and rituals, to return with wisdom that reaffirms life. This shared mythos invites us to consider that the journey beyond the ordinary is not a cultural invention, but a fundamental part of the human spirit. Over time, as societies shifted and power structures hardened, the wisdom of shamanic journeys began to face resistance. Religious authorities, political rulers, and eventually scientific institutions often dismissed or suppressed the use of sacred plants. What had once been considered a bridge to the divine was labeled as superstition, heresy, or even crime. In Europe, the rise of organized religion cast a shadow over pre-Christian practices. Plant medicines and trance rituals, once woven into community life, were rebranded as witchcraft. Those who continued to use them risked persecution, and countless traditions were silenced or forced underground. With the expansion of colonial powers, suppression deepened. Indigenous peoples in the Americas, Africa, and Asia saw their sacred practices outlawed. In many cases, the very plants that had been central to their healing traditions were destroyed, banned, or replaced with foreign medicines. Colonization was not only about land and resources, but also about spiritual control. By severing communities from their plant allies and rituals, colonizers disrupted the flow of ancestral knowledge and weakened cultural identity. The peyote cactus, for example, was declared illegal in several regions, and ceremonies surrounding it were violently suppressed. Yet despite these efforts, the traditions endured, carried forward by those who risked everything to preserve them. The scientific revolution, with its emphasis on rational observation and measurable evidence, introduced a new form of resistance. Experiences of visions, energy, and spirit were often dismissed as hallucinations or psychological delusions. While chemistry and biology unraveled the physical properties of these plants, their sacred dimension was ignored. The focus turned toward isolating compounds rather than honoring the relationship between plant, ritual, and spirit. To the shaman, the plant was a living teacher. To the scientist, it became a chemical substance to be analyzed, controlled, or exploited. Modern culture added yet another layer of misunderstanding. As plant medicines entered the global stage in the 20th century, they were often stripped of their sacred context. Used recreationally or sensationalized in media, their deeper purpose was obscured. Stories of abuse, fear, or chaos replaced the accounts of healing and transformation. For many, the shamanic journey became synonymous with danger rather than wisdom. At the root of this resistance lies fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of surrender, fear of the power these practices hold to disrupt established structures. To acknowledge that plants can open doors to higher dimensions is to admit that reality is more than material. It challenges hierarchies of power, disrupts systems of control, and reminds humanity of its ancient bond with nature. It is easier to dismiss or ban than to confront the possibility that truth may lie in the very practices once condemned. Yet even in the face of centuries of suppression, the wisdom of shamanic journeys has never fully disappeared. It continues to surface, calling humanity back to a forgotten harmony. In recent years, a renewed openness has begun to unfold, allowing ancient perspectives to reemerge alongside new interpretations. For many seekers, the shamanic journey is not seen as a relic of the past, but as a living doorway into possibilities that expand far beyond material understanding. Plant medicines are being spoken of once more as teachers, not as escapes from reality, but as guides toward deeper truths. In this light, experiences once dismissed as hallucinations are being reconsidered as genuine encounters with hidden dimensions of existence. Some describe these journeys as moments of soul remembrance, where forgotten parts of the self awaken. Past life visions are reported, bringing clarity to patterns of fear or attraction that seem to reach beyond a single lifetime. Others speak of meeting beings of light or guardians who reveal insights about the purpose of the soul. In these stories, the plants do not provide answers in the form of logic or data. Instead, they activate awareness, opening the seeker to possibilities that lie dormant within. The knowledge received is less about information and more about transformation. This perspective has also intertwined with the language of vibrational medicine. Healers describe plant journeys as shifting frequencies within the body and spirit, tuning the person to a higher resonance. The visions are not random images, but symbolic expressions of the vibrational changes taking place. A serpent coiled in the spine may represent the stirring of Kundalini energy. A vision of water may reflect emotional cleansing. These archetypal experiences appear across cultures, reinforcing the idea that the plants unlock universal patterns rather than isolated fantasies. Mystics suggest that the plants serve as catalysts for entering states that humanity is naturally capable of reaching without them. They are not the source of the vision, but the doorway that reminds us of our innate connection to the greater field of consciousness. Some traditions even caution that the plant itself is not the final goal. The real journey is learning to carry that awakened state into daily life, to live with clarity, compassion, and a sense of unity long after the ceremony has ended. For those willing to embrace this perspective, the possibilities expand far beyond personal healing. They invite a reimagining of reality itself. The boundaries between inner and outer, life and death, self and cosmos begin to dissolve. The shamanic journey becomes less about leaving the body and more about remembering that all existence is already interconnected. In this way, plant medicines reveal not only hidden dimensions, but also the hidden wholeness of life, always present and waiting to be seen. As we look back at the history of shamanic journeys, it becomes clear that their power was not only in the visions they provided, but also in the cultural role they played. These traditions were repeatedly targeted by systems that sought to control the spirit of humanity. Colonization, industrialization, and organized institutions all benefited from separating people from their ancestral ways. When communities were cut off from plant allies, they lost not only a healing practice, but also a direct relationship with the natural world. This disconnection created dependence on outside authorities for guidance, health, and meaning, weakening the sovereignty of the individual and the community. In many cases, the suppression of these traditions was deliberate. By branding the plants as dangerous or evil, colonial powers and religious institutions replaced sacred rituals with doctrines that reinforced obedience rather than personal revelation. The industrial age deepened this divide by reducing nature to a resource to be consumed, rather than a living partner to be honored. Where once every tree, river, and vine carried a voice, the modern worldview reduced them to commodities stripped of spirit. Humanity was taught to forget its ability to hear the earth speak. The interference extended beyond the spiritual into the political. When people remembered their own connection to the divine, they became harder to control. A shaman who could heal with a plant and a song challenged the authority of doctors, priests, and rulers. A community that trusted its own visions did not need outside powers to dictate its truth. Suppressing plant medicines was not simply about health or safety. It was about severing a pathway to freedom, keeping humanity within structures that profited from forgetfulness. Even today, echoes of this interference can be felt. Many of the sacred plants remain illegal in much of the world, their use punishable by law. Yet pharmaceuticals derived from similar compounds are marketed openly for profit. This double standard reveals the ongoing struggle between ancient wisdom and modern systems of control. What is dismissed as dangerous in the hands of indigenous healers is celebrated when patented in a laboratory. But despite centuries of suppression, the plants continue to call. Their power has not been erased. The traditions that survived have done so because of resilience, courage, and an unshakable belief in the sacred. To reclaim these forgotten powers is not to turn away from the present, but to remember what has always been within reach. It is to restore balance, to honor the voices of the ancestors, and to challenge the forces that would keep humanity small. In this remembrance lies the possibility of collective renewal, a shift toward a world where spiritual sovereignty is no longer hidden, but lived. When the wisdom of shamanic journeys is carried into daily life, it ceases to be only a ceremonial experience and becomes an embodied path of transformation. Those who walk this way speak of practices that do not require sacred plants, yet still honor the spirit of what those journeys reveal. Breathwork, meditation, and deep communion with nature are often described as ways to access similar states of expanded awareness. Through these practices, one learns that the visionary states are not bound to a specific ritual, but can arise naturally when the heart and mind are aligned. Embodiment begins with intention. A person who has journeyed with plant allies may return with profound visions, but unless those insights are integrated, they fade like dreams upon waking. Integration is the art of bringing the wisdom of the vision into the ordinary world. It may mean altering habits that no longer serve, healing relationships that carry old wounds, or dedicating time to practices that nurture clarity and balance. Each small step becomes a way of living the journey rather than remembering it. Many traditions emphasize the role of ritual in daily life as a bridge between worlds. Lighting a candle, offering prayer to the earth, or speaking gratitude to the waters are not symbolic gestures, but living conversations with the forces of nature. They affirm the truth that the sacred is not far away, but present in every breath and every action. Some describe this as activating the inner shaman, awakening the ability to listen deeply, to see beneath appearances, and to act in harmony with the unseen patterns of energy that shape life. On a personal level, the embodiment of this wisdom often leads to healing. People report shifts in physical health, greater emotional balance, and a renewed sense of purpose. Yet the most profound change is often in perception itself. Life is no longer viewed as random or disconnected, but as a tapestry woven with meaning. Challenges are seen as teachings, relationships as mirrors, and the earth as a living ally. This perspective does not remove hardship, but it changes the way hardship is experienced. It transforms struggle into opportunity for growth and deepens the recognition of unity with all things. When practiced in community, the effect multiplies. Shared rituals, circles of prayer, and collective ceremonies create a field where healing and wisdom are amplified. Just as the shaman once journeyed on behalf of the tribe, individuals today can bring their embodied insights into families, communities, and even wider society. In doing so, they help to restore a balance that has long been fractured. The wisdom of the plants, once hidden or suppressed, becomes a living current flowing through human lives once again, guiding the collective toward remembrance of its sacred connection. To reflect on the journey of shamanic traditions, is to recognize that they were never only about altered states of mind. They were doorways into a different way of being, one in which the human spirit was inseparable from the earth, the sky, and the hidden dimensions of existence. The plants were honored not as tools, but as elders, guardians, and allies who offered wisdom when approached with humility. Their medicine was not limited to visions. It was the restoration of balance, the healing of wounds both seen and unseen, and the remembering of humanity's place within the greater whole. For those who have encountered these journeys, the impact often lasts long beyond the ceremony. The memory of unity, the clarity of a vision, or the sense of guidance continues to echo in daily choices and perspectives. Even for those who never drink the sacred brews or eat the sacred mushrooms, the stories themselves remind us that life is layered with meaning and that unseen realities surround us. To listen to these traditions is to accept that truth may not be limited to what can be measured, but may also dwell in what is felt, dreamed, and revealed. Reclaiming this wisdom today is more than spiritual curiosity. It is a response to a world that has forgotten its roots. At a time when disconnection, exploitation, and imbalance shape much of modern life, the lessons of shamanic journeys invite a return to reverence. They remind us that nature is alive, that the human heart is capable of profound healing, and that there are dimensions of reality waiting to be honored. Whether one enters through plants, prayer, or silent meditation, the essence of the journey is the same. It is the call to remember. As you carry this reflection, allow it to be more than a story from the past. Let it be a question whispered to your own soul. How do you listen to the living world? What practices bring you into balance with the unseen? How can the wisdom of your ancestors find a home within your own life? In holding these questions, you walk in the same current that guided shamans for thousands of years. Thanks for listening. This has been Ancient Spiritual Knowledge. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, gain access to bonus content and unlock our entire library of podcasts, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.